Welcome to another interesting episode of IT Management for your business. 5 things to think about when replatforming your e-commerce system. Almost every organization, at some point in time, will have to move off their current e-commerce solution to a new one. There can be a multitude of reasons why this occurs, from a vendor sunsetting a product, to functional gaps, to even outgrowing the performance metrics of the current system. Regardless of the underlying reasons, here are 5 considerations you can and should take to heart. This will help you and your organization transition to a solution that is best for your immediate and future needs. Number 1, why? As improbable as it may sound, understanding the why of transitioning from one e-commerce solution to another does not always get the proper attention it deserves. I have found that in far too many cases, there is a straw that broke the camel's back, driving the impetus for change. While it may be true that some event can draw the attention of senior decision makers to approve the effort, there is never, ever one underlying shortcoming that drives this change. Take the following story for example. Rebecca, the e-commerce director for a fashion retailer, has seasonal peaks and special sales, which constantly impeded the functionality of her online store. Shoppers would experience page load issues and not be able to access the storefront. There would be an inability to navigate the storefront efficiently, and even timeouts that prevented her customers from placing orders. She had her team add additional system resources, optimize images and layouts where possible, and a plethora of similar actions to mitigate these issues, but alas, to no avail. At first glance, the defect here could just be the platform performance matrix. However, while the system execution may have suffered during these periods, there are most likely other issues that should be addressed as well. Does the customer service rep team have any problems? Does the marketing team have all the promotional tools they need for an effective campaign strategy? Are the out-of-the-box reports useful, or do they require considerable massaging in order to be consumed? How well does the platform perform downstream with your logistics team and other integrated systems and services? As your e-com management team, do they have challenges that affects their abilities to be effective that also needs addressing? In order to know the why, it is extremely important to conduct the proper discovery sessions with all stakeholders and get buy-in on priorities prior to doing anything else. Personally, I strongly encourage an agile approach, but as long as you focus on the user stories of your stakeholders, that will provide a far more useful picture than just gathering a detailed list of requirements. More on that next. Number 2, requirements and needs. A critical step to successfully replatforming is to understand the difference between what is required versus what is needed. While requirements will lead to a list of prerequisites, understanding what is needed will allow the creation of user stories that can encapsulate your organization's objectives in a more thoughtful manner. One practical approach to documenting these needs is to move forward as if you were preparing for an RFP, request for proposal, and think of all of the information outside vendors would need in order to present a compelling solution for you to give consideration. Even if this document was just for internal use, all resources would greatly benefit and have a sense of confidence for knowing that there is indeed a complete picture that can be thoughtfully explained by the product owner. When creating the document, it is advisable to include the following: Clearly explain your current state and future state objectives. Explain the why of current operational practices. Detail all internal and external current dependencies. Allow the vendor to problem solve and not simply check off functionality prerequisites. Allow the vendor to recommend complementary and supporting third-party peripherals and services. Once this step is completed, it needs to be reviewed and refined by obtaining the buy-in from all of your affected stakeholders, which leads us to the next topic, stakeholder buy-in. Number 3, stakeholder buy-in. Let me start by saying, involve representatives of all affected departments in every phase. Involve them early and involve them often. Why do I say this? I have attended far too many project kickoff meetings where the people who are actually affected have no clue as to the contractual agreement that resulted from the vendor's interaction with the company, and thus eventually require additional contracts to address the gaps that will occur during the discovery phase or later implementation phases of a project. Additionally, you may wish to consider acquiring an outside consultancy to help that has specific subject matter expertise on the type of system you are replatforming. An outside resource automatically forces 2 things to happen. Number 1, all stakeholders will have to provide the requested input in a timely manner due to the organization indicating that this is a priority since they are paying for an outside consultant. This is especially helpful in those cases where it is difficult to obtain stakeholder participation due to conflicting priorities. Number 2, a more comprehensive understanding of the possible impact of the replatforming effort. Once you have stakeholder buy-in, this leads us to the penultimate consideration. How does this affect HR capital? Number 4, schedules and resource management. It is highly advisable to understand how much of an effect replatforming can have on your organization's operations and workforce. You need to plan for your team's availability, outside vendor resource scheduling, any and all procurement and disbursement liabilities, as well as contingencies to mitigate possible risks. Such projects not only can touch multiple departments, but can affect all downstream operations, such as your warehouse fulfillment, customer service reps, in-store operations for those who buy online and pick up in store. Developing a simple plan of action and master resource schedule will greatly help with your visibility and understanding of your project health. With that in mind, there are many ways you can manage your project, which leads us to our final thought, project methodology. Number 5, employ an agile-based strategy. There is a huge movement now for everyone to go agile. I cannot encourage enough the use of an agile strategy to deliver a consistent series of iterative development that allows your stakeholders to see progress and be consistently engaged throughout the lifecycle of the project. The principles of Agile are simple and straightforward and can be found online if you are not familiar with the concept. You can even take some online courses to help cement your understanding. Agile, in short, is simply a methodology or mindset that encourages cross-functional skill sets and continuous delivery. The Agile framework of how you use Agile would be specific to the replatforming project itself and can vary from one replatforming project to the next. The biggest reasons why you should use Agile are continuous delivery of functional iterations of the project objective in short increments of time, visible results to showcase the return on investment during each iteration, ability to make course corrections without significant impacts to the project budget and schedule, and most importantly, a happier team, since Agile gives greater consideration to the well-being of the individual over simply following processes or using fancy tools. So, what are your thoughts? What are the things you think should be considered when replatforming? Do you agree or disagree with the above? I'd love to hear any and all feedback. Once again, thank you for taking the time out to take a read of this article or to watch this video. Authored and narrated by Derek Stringfellow.